It's high noon.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the High Noon channel. I am DeathBlow, and as many of you may know, with the arrival of Week 5, Overwatch League will be debuting the new Hero Pools change that was announced at the start of the season. At the end of last weekend's games, the bans for the week were selected, and the result was that Reinhardt, Moira, McCree, and Widowmaker are all banned from this upcoming weekend's games. This change is going to get interesting fast, and we get to start it all off by removing the current meta main tank and the best hit scan heroes from the game. So today, I'm going to try to explain what I think our first hero pool meta will look like and how it's going to affect the matches this upcoming weekend. So to begin solving this puzzle, let's start by taking a look at our tank ban for the week. Reinhardt has defined the first 4 weeks of play, and paired with Mei, been absolutely central to the success and failure of many teams thus far. Orissa's been nerfed numerous times lately and has all but disappeared from the meta, at least in compositions where only one shield is being used, and Sigma has also been taken down a peg recently in order to put a stop to some of the double shield compositions that were so popular in the off-season. While I expect some maps to warrant an Orisa D.Va tank duo, and a return to double shield is possible for some teams, I don't think Orisa will be involved in defining the tank pair for the weekend. The shields are just too easy to burn through at the moment with heroes like Hanzo and Reaper and Pharah, and without McCree to pressure those shield breakers, what's supposed to be able to stop them from just tearing right through the shields or diving past your front line entirely? Speaking of dive, it's been gaining popularity recently. We've had Toronto surprising people early and Houston finally finding a way into the win column on Sunday, thanks in large part due to their dive strategy. So if dive was already viable, even if it was map dependent, with the Reinhardt compositions at the forefront of the meta, what's supposed to happen when you take the Reinhardt away? The easy answer is that dive takes over. But that's certainly not the only reason I think it's going to be the go-to pick in Week 5. Now we get to what I think are the most interesting bans of the week, the DPS. This week teams won't have access to either Widowmaker or McCree, and both of these heroes are well known for the same thing, countering Pharah. Many would argue that D.Va is the best counter to Pharah, and they have a good point. A dedicated D.Va can shadow the Pharah around the map and negate a significant chunk of her damage output, but she can't exactly kill her with a Mercy in her pocket. In addition to this, Sombra is a popular dive hero, and if D.Va's locked on Pharah, she's not going to have a difficult time getting a hack off on the D.Va player, and the duration of a hack is more than enough time for a damage-boosted Pharah to get a kill or two and win the fight. Pharah Mercy-based compositions may get outclassed by the Sombra Doomfist or Hackfist comps that we've seen from the Toronto Defiant and Houston Outlaws so far. With 2 players in the air, the ground can be won easily with the Hackfist duo, especially without McCree there to protect your backline. But this battle will have to be decided by each team when they face one another. London was able to beat the double flanker dive comp of Houston last week, so it's far from a hard counter, and it will be up to their opponent to force them off of it by winning the ground game before Pharah can take over the fight. But all things considered, teams with a better Pharah player should have an advantage this weekend, if their specific map pool allows for it. Speaking of map pools, this weekend we know we'll see Busan, Junkertown, Blizzard World, Oasis, Havana, Eichenwald, Ilios, and Kings Row. This doesn't account for the assault maps that may not actually see play and are therefore not listed on the app, or the extra maps that might be needed for close matches, but Oasis, Eichenwald, and Ilios here are all known Pharah maps and will be in the rotation. She sees plenty of playtime here even when the hit scan counters are available, and she feels unavoidable on these maps specifically this weekend. So with all this meta information in the back of our minds, I wanted to take a look at the schedule this week and see if we can identify some maps that might be impacted by the Pharah more than most. And more than the Pharah specifically, the switch to a dive composition in general is going to really shake up the power level of some of these teams. Atlanta and New York I don't think have anything to worry about here. Both teams are considerably stronger than their opponents this week, and I don't think a shift in the metagame is going to impact these results. Same thing for Philly, though I am very curious to see how Sato looks on the Winston instead of the Reinhardt. That's been a problem in the past. Let's see if that's been rectified as well. And as long as Corey's Tracer hasn't gotten too rusty, or if he's been hiding a Sombra in his back pocket all this time, Washington should have an easy win against the Boston Uprising. The first two matches of the week, on the other hand, require some closer examination. Toronto vs. Florida is a bit of a unique situation, in my opinion. Toronto's been running this composition for a while. They seem to have been figured out a little bit on it, but teams can't counter it this time. They have to match up with it. And Houston was able to do that because of Blaze's Doomfist, but is Yaki up to the same task? Is he going to be able to have the same level of impact that Blaze was? I also think Florida's going to be changing tanks here. Fate's a little bit more practiced on the Winston gameplay, and I think he's likely to take the starting spot over Carry-On this week. Personally, I'm expecting this trend to continue all season. If Reinhardt's what's needed, it'll be Carry-On. If Winston's what's needed, it'll be Fate. The maps here are going to be Busan, Junkertown, and Blizzard World for the first three, and I don't really see the Pharah playing much of an impact on these maps. Either of these teams will be able to force the Pharah if they want to, but I'm not sure either's going to take that fight. Instead, I think we'll see BQB playing the Sombra alongside Yaki's Doomfist. And while I think Gargoyle and Gangnam Jin have been standout performers this season, their partners on the front and back lines respectively have left a little bit to be desired. I don't think Toronto has the same level of concerns for any one of their roster members, and as long as Surefour plays up to his usual self instead of the performance we got from him on Sunday, I think Toronto's going to be able to take the win. Honestly, this one can go either way, and I think it promises to be a very entertaining start to our week. Now for the last match on our list, the Paris Eternal against the Houston Outlaws. Yesterday on the podcast, I picked Paris to win this game. After doing all the research for this video and formulating my opinions about the metagame, I started to second guess myself. I was getting a lot of clips of Blaze on Doomfist and Dante on Sombra so I can use them as background footage, and I couldn't help but notice how clean Houston looked playing in this dive composition. Their engages were crisp and fast. They were diving together onto the same target, multiple players, able to burst people down and really control the pace of play, something they weren't even able to come close to prior to this week. A big reason for the turnaround was the play of Muma on Winston. There's no beating around the bush. His Reinhardt was among the worst in the league this season. But when Houston has played dive, whether Muma was on Wrecking Ball or Winston, he looked a lot better. Not putting him at the top of any top 5 lists or anything like that anytime soon, but he goes from being a liability to an asset. Unfortunately for Paris fans, I think the opposite might be true for the Eternal. The switch from Reinhardt to Winston, I think, is going to cripple Benbest. So much so it might even be No Smite that gets the nod here. Realistically, the worst thing I can say about No Smite is that he's not really gotten a chance to play on Winston yet in Overwatch League. There was a little bit stage 1 last year, but it wasn't long before Gushui got that starting job, and No Smite really didn't touch the stage again. But let's look at the numbers we do have for Muma, Benbest, and No Smite. As you can see, in 2019, Muma got the better of both Paris Eternal tanks on Winston across the board. As I said, there's only 30 minutes of playtime here to go off of for No Smite, so I'm willing to treat all of his stats as outlier data and throw them away. It still leaves me with a complete unknown, far from something that I'm confident in. The maps in this matchup are also pretty interesting. They'll be playing on Oasis, Havana, and Eichenwald for the first 3. Oasis and Eichenwald specifically are known Pharah maps, but I think without the hit scan heroes in the meta, Havana has a real chance to be dominated by Pharah too. Maybe not the entire map, but at least on defense, first point, teams should be able to hold very close and utilize the Pharah to great effect. Houston can opt to use Hydration or Blaze on the Pharah, and since both players can actually play a pretty mean Doomfist, you might see them swap based off of what the preferred DPS selection is for that map, letting Blaze handle the Doomfist and Hydration the Pharah. With Sparkle still too young to join the team, the Pharah duties will fall to Nico for the Paris Eternal, and while in contenders he used Pharah in large part to make a name for himself, he failed to win the starting job last season over Shadowburn on this particular role. It's certainly possible, but I'm not expecting a huge breakout Pharah performance from Nico this weekend. Their best opportunity for a win might be to actually play double shield. Since Hanbin's arrived, he's played more Sigma than almost anybody else in Overwatch League, and he's played it pretty well. Exi and FD God have absolutely been standouts for Paris and make this a real difficult game to call. Similar to the Toronto game, ultimately I'm giving my prediction to the team that has the fewest weaknesses, and I'm just as surprised as you are that that's Houston. I want to take a quick moment to thank all of you for all the feedback you've given me in the first couple of videos that I've put out. It means a lot to me. I'm really glad you guys are enjoying the content, and I'm really looking forward to continuing to make these videos. If you're looking for more of my content, you can check out the podcast on this channel. We record every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The network also has the Foul Play and Blackwatch Report podcasts. Check those out if you're interested in Fantasy Overwatch or Contenders in Tier 2. You can follow me on Twitter at HNP DeathBlow, and please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe on this video. Trying to get myself up to 1,000 subscribers. Any help you guys can give me would be very, very appreciated. That's going to wrap this one up. Thank you once again, and as always, remember,
It's high noon.